My name, the one printed on my driver's permit and yelled by my mom when I left dirty dishes in the sink, is Ethan Brooks. I'm 16, a junior at Glendale High in Springfield, Missouri, the Heartland, as they call it, though mostly it just felt like the land of endless strip malls and Friday night football games I didn't care much about. Before everything changed a few months back, my life was aggressively, profoundly ordinary. Maybe even less than ordinary. It felt like I was living in grayscale while everyone else seemed to have at least some color. My daily routine was a masterclass in minimum effort. Wake up at the last possible second, usually after hitting snooze on my phone alarm about 6 times. Shovel some cereal into my mouth, if I bothered, grab my perpetually messy backpack, and make it to school just as the tardy bell was ringing its annoying head off. Classes were things to be endured, not engaged with. I'd sit there, physically present in Mr. Davison's history lecture or Mrs. Gable's algebra class, but mentally? I was usually miles away, scrolling through TikTok under the desk, planning my next move in whatever online game was currently consuming my free time, or just staring blankly out the window, wondering how long until lunch. My grades were okay, mostly CS, maybe a B- if I accidentally paid attention. Enough to keep my parents off my back, which was the main goal. They're good people, my mom and dad. Dad works in insurance, mom's a nurse. They go to church semi-regularly, a kind of mainstream Protestant church downtown. They tried to get me involved when I was younger, Sunday school, youth group pizza nights. But it felt forced. Awkward. Like wearing clothes that didn't fit. All the talk about God, Jesus, sin, salvation, it felt like a language I didn't speak and wasn't particularly interested in learning. It seemed like something for people who were either really messed up or really old. I wasn't either, so why bother? My real life happened through my phone screen. My friends, Jake and Noah, were mostly online friends too, even though we went to the same school. We communicated through Discord servers, text messages filled with memes and inside jokes, and yelled at each other through headsets during marathon gaming sessions. We'd hang out sometimes in person, grab burgers or catch a movie, but even then, half the time we'd just be sitting together, staring at our own phones. Connection felt mediated. Filtered through screens and notifications. I wouldn't have called myself unhappy, exactly. Just numb. Adrift. Coasting. I figured this was just how teenage life was. You put in your time, get through high school, then maybe real life starts. The big questions. Meaning. Purpose. God. That was all firmly filed under, deal with it later. I assumed I had decades. Turns out, my later arrived without any warning at 3:15 p.m. on a random Monday afternoon. March 10, 2025. It wasn't raining, wasn't snowing, wasn't ominously cloudy. Just a standard late winter afternoon in Missouri, gray sky, a chill in the air, the trees still bare. School had just let out. The final bell had rung its jarring electric screech, releasing us from the institutional hold of classes. The hallways instantly flooded with the usual end-of-day chaos, slamming lockers, shouting, laughter, the shuffling stampede of hundreds of teenagers eager for escape. I was caught in the middle of the main hallway tide, heading towards the west exit. My backpack felt heavy, stuffed with books I hadn't opened and assignments I hadn't started. My mind was already fast-forwarding through the afternoon, get home, drop the backpack, grab a snack, probably chips, fire up the PC. Jake and Noah would be online, the new season of our favorite Battle Royale game had just launched. That was the plan. That was the entirety of my focus. Mundane, predictable, immediate gratification. I remember shuffling past the display case filled with dusty debate team trophies. I remember seeing Sarah Jenkins walking ahead of me, laughing with a friend, her ponytail swinging. I remember the smell of floor wax and stale pizza from the cafeteria. Just fragments of ordinary sensory input. There was no warning sign. No dizziness, no chest pain, no sudden headache. 1 second, I was putting one foot in front of the other, lost in thoughts of virtual battles. The next second, the connection dropped. Utterly. Instantly. It wasn't like fainting, where the world fades or spins. It was like a cosmic power switch was flipped off. Sound ceased. Sight vanished into absolute blackness. Thought itself stopped midstream. There was no sensation of falling, no impact, no pain. Just, complete and total cessation. A void. An unplugging from existence itself. One moment, Ethan Brooks, average teenager, was walking down a hallway. The next, he simply wasn't. The void didn't last. How long, I have no idea, time felt irrelevant. But then, consciousness flickered back on, like a computer rebooting after a crash. But I wasn't in the hallway anymore, not in the same way. I was, above it. Floating. Hovering. It's hard to describe the sensation, weightless, effortless, like pure awareness detached from physical form. I felt incredibly calm, peaceful even. The frantic teenage energy, the low-level hum of boredom and anxiety that had been my constant companion, gone. My perspective shifted downwards. And I saw him. Me. My body. Lying face down on the speckled linoleum tiles, right near the trophy case. My limbs were sprawled at awkward angles. My backpack had slid off my shoulder, spilling a history textbook and a crumpled math worksheet onto the floor beside my head. A dark, glistening pool was slowly spreading out from under my temple. It was blood. My blood. The scene below erupted into chaos almost immediately. Screams echoed up towards me. Students who had been walking nearby stumbled back, faces frozen in shock and horror. Others rushed forward. I saw Jake push through the crowd, his usual sarcastic grin replaced by wide-eyed panic, yelling my name. I saw Sarah Jenkins cover her mouth, tears instantly welling in her eyes. Teachers appeared. Mr. Davison knelt beside my body, his face grim, shouting instructions. Someone call 911. Now. Get Nurse Thompson. He carefully turned my head slightly, checking my airway, then felt for a pulse at my neck. I saw his shoulders slump slightly, a subtle shake of his head. Someone, I think it was Kayla from my English class, took off her oversized sweatshirt and gently placed it under my head as a pillow. The school nurse, Mrs. Thompson, arrived, pushing through the throng, carrying her medical bag. She started CPR immediately, rhythmic compressions on my chest, breaths puffed into my mouth. The scene felt strangely distant, like watching a high-stakes drama unfold on a screen. I knew that was my body down there, the one I'd lived in for 16 years. I knew the situation was critical, dire. Yet, I felt no pain, no fear, no urgency. Only this profound, unshakable peace and a growing sense of detachment. It was clear that the essential me, the part that thought, felt, observed, was no longer housed in that broken form on the hallway floor. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. More adults arrived, the principal, security guards trying to manage the crowd of terrified students. The paramedics burst through the doors with their gurney and equipment, taking over CPR, attaching pads to my chest, calling out readings, or lack thereof. No pulse. Asystole. Starting another round. Even as they fought desperately to restart the heart in the body below, my awareness felt, drawn. Pulled gently but irresistibly away from the scene. It wasn't a force, more like a current catching a leaf. The sounds of the hallway, the shouts, the sirens, the frantic medical commands, began to fade. The image of my body, the concerned faces, the familiar school corridor, grew hazy, indistinct. I was leaving. Moving on. And strangely, I felt no regret, only a quiet curiosity about where this current was taking me. The transition wasn't like traveling through space, it was like shifting dimensions. The solid, physical reality of the school hallway didn't just disappear, it dissolved, like sugar melting in water, replaced by something infinitely more vast and profound. I found myself immersed in a realm of absolute stillness. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was a living stillness, vibrant, resonant, humming with an energy that felt both ancient and incredibly dynamic. There were no visual boundaries, no walls, no floor, no sky. Just limitless expanse. Yet, I didn't feel lost or small. I felt present. Held. Known. Light permeated this realm, but it wasn't like sunlight or electric light. It was soft, gentle, emanating from everywhere and nowhere at once, like the space itself was woven from threads of pure, gentle luminescence. Within this light, colors swirled and shifted, hues far richer and more complex than anything on the earthly spectrum, evoking feelings rather than just visual sensations, deep blues that felt like infinite peace, glowing golds that resonated with pure joy, soft rose tones that pulsed with unconditional love. My consciousness felt liberated, expanded. Thoughts flowed with incredible speed and clarity, unhindered by the limitations of a physical brain. All the clutter of my teenage mind, the worries about tests, the social anxieties, the constant buzz of digital notifications, the desire for the next game level, it all seemed laughably insignificant, like static fading away, leaving only a clear signal. I was just, me. Pure awareness. Stripped bare of all the roles and labels and anxieties of my earthly identity. And I knew, with a certainty that bypassed intellect entirely, that I was not alone. A presence permeated this living stillness, this gentle light. It was immense, beyond comprehension, yet intimately personal. It was the source of the peace, the love, the light that surrounded and sustained me. It felt like the fundamental reality underpinning all existence. My casual dismissal of God, my teenage indifference, felt like the ignorant arrogance of an ant denying the existence of the sun. Here, his reality was undeniable, self-evident, the very air I didn't physically breathe. I felt drawn deeper into this reality, towards the heart of the presence. Not by force, but by an irresistible magnetic pull of love. The feeling was one of homecoming, of approaching the one my soul had unknowingly yearned for throughout my short, distracted life. Awe filled me, pushing out any lingering detachment. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. More real than anything I had ever known. As I moved deeper into the heart of this luminous reality, the presence began to coalesce, taking on a form, not fully physical, but discernible within the light. It wasn't the overwhelming intensity one sensed as the ultimate source, but a manifestation of exquisite tenderness, grace, and profound compassion. A figure emerged, robed in blues so deep they seemed to hold the night sky, shimmering softly. Her face glowed with a gentle, inner light, and her eyes were incredible. They held the wisdom of ages, the sorrow of a mother who had watched her child suffer, and a love so pure, so unconditionally accepting, it felt like the warmth of the first spring sun after a long winter. My mind, still partially operating on earthly programming, struggled to identify her. But my soul knew. Mary. The mother of Jesus. Not the serene, distant figure in stained glass windows, but a living, vibrant being radiating love and sorrowful understanding. She didn't speak with audible words, but her thoughts flowed into my consciousness, clear as crystal, gentle as a breeze. She looked at me, and I felt utterly transparent before her gaze. She saw everything, my apathy, my wasted time, my shallow pursuits, my moments of unacknowledged longing for something more. Yet, there was zero condemnation. Only love, and a deep, resonant sadness. Tears, like drops of liquid light, welled in her beautiful eyes and traced paths down her radiant cheeks. Oh, my child, her thoughts embraced me, filled with a tenderness that cracked open my hardened teenage heart. So many wander. So many forget. She extended her luminous hands, and I felt drawn into an embrace that transcended the physical. It was an embrace of pure compassion, pure acceptance. In that moment, all the walls I had built, the indifference, the cynicism, the pretense of not caring, crumbled. I felt like a small, lost child finally being held, finally being seen, not for the facade I presented, but for the searching soul underneath. The numbness I had lived with for so long dissolved, replaced by a wave of emotion, regret for my blindness, gratitude for this unexpected grace, and a dawning awareness of the love I had ignored. Her gaze shifted, and she shared her perspective with me. My awareness expanded, and I saw glimpses of the world through her sorrowful eyes. I saw millions, billions, adrift like I had been. Faces illuminated by the ubiquitous blue glow of screens, endlessly scrolling, seeking connection but finding only fleeting distraction. I saw hearts chasing after temporary highs, popularity, possessions, experiences, leaving them ultimately empty and unsatisfied. I saw churches where rituals were performed beautifully, but the pews held hearts that were distant, preoccupied, going through the motions without genuine encounter. They build houses, her sad thoughts conveyed, but forget the home. They speak prayers, but forget to listen. She showed me my own friends, Jake engrossed in a violent video game, Noah obsessed with his social media follower count, not with judgment, but with a mother's heartbreak for children captivated by glittering counterfeits while the true feast awaited them. They are starving, she communicated, but trying to fill themselves with dust. Yet, her sorrow was not despair. She smiled, a gentle radiance returning to her eyes, and showed me other glimpses. A quiet moment of genuine prayer offered by someone on a crowded bus. A family laughing together around a dinner table, phones put away. A group of young people serving meals at a shelter, their faces alight with purpose. His light still flickers, she assured me. Hearts still turn. Hope is never extinguished. Her presence, her tears, her love, they weren't the final destination. They were a preparation, a gentle awakening, a clearing of the path. She was pointing me, guiding me, towards the one whose love and sorrow were even deeper, the one whose call I had ignored for so long. She was leading me to her Son. As Mary's comforting presence steadied my newly awakened soul, the light around us intensified dramatically. It wasn't just brighter, it felt more substantial, more potent, filled with an energy that was simultaneously overwhelming and life-giving. Mary turned her gaze upward with reverence, and I knew he was here. Jesus. He didn't stride into view, he simply was. His presence filled everything, the undeniable center from which all the light, love, and reality of this realm emanated. Describing him is impossible. He was clothed in light that seemed alive, shifting, dazzling, yet his form was distinct. His eyes burned with a fire that contained everything, absolute holiness, infinite knowledge, fierce love, profound sorrow, unwavering justice, bottomless mercy. They saw not just me, but the entirety of my existence, past, present, and future, all laid bare. There was no hiding from that gaze, but strangely, no desire to. Ethan, his voice wasn't sound, it was a resonance that vibrated in the core of my being, possessing the power that calmed storms and the tenderness that welcomed children. Welcome. Before this presence, my soul could only bow in awestruck worship. The casual indifference I had lived with felt like insanity, like blasphemy. Here was the source of the very breath I had taken for granted, the meaning I had never bothered to seek. His gaze held mine, and my life unfolded again, not just as a review of actions, but as an understanding of my heart's posture. I saw my 16 years measured against his purpose for me. I saw the countless hours wasted on mindless scrolling, trivial games, shallow conversations, hours that could have been spent seeking him, serving others, growing into the person he created me to be. I saw the opportunities he had placed in my path, chances to show kindness, to speak truth, to stand up for what was right, opportunities one had often ignored out of apathy, fear, or simple self-absorption. He showed me the hollowness of my good enough philosophy. It wasn't about earning salvation through works, but about the state of my heart. My heart had been closed off, self-sufficient, lukewarm. Because you are lukewarm, his thoughts echoed the stark warning from Revelation I didn't even know I knew, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. The understanding wasn't one of angry rejection, but of the natural consequence of indifference. A vessel unwilling to contain his fire cannot remain in his intimate presence. He showed me the state of his church in the world, pockets of vibrant faith shining brightly, but vast swathes marked by compromise, comfort-seeking, and a focus on programs and personalities rather than his presence and power. He showed leaders more concerned with pleasing crowds than speaking hard truths. He showed congregations substituting social gatherings and therapeutic messages for genuine repentance and discipleship. They have replaced relationship with religion. His sorrow was palpable. They perform rituals, but their hearts do not know me. He revealed the subtle strategies of the enemy, not always dramatic temptation, but the constant, insidious whisper of distraction, doubt, delay, and easy compromise. Making sin seem normal, making holiness seem unattainable, making faith seem irrelevant to daily life. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. His thought resonated with divine authority. He steals time, kills passion, destroys purpose, often through simple neglect and distraction. His love was still overwhelming, the foundation of everything. But it was a holy love, a jealous love, a love that grieved deeply over wasted potential, ignored invitations, and hearts content to live far beneath the glorious destiny he offered. He wasn't condemning me to hell, he was showing me how close I had come to choosing emptiness by my lifelong indifference. The weight of his truth, the clarity of his perspective, the intensity of his love and sorrow, it was almost too much to bear. All I wanted was to stay there, immersed in his light, learning from him, finally safe, finally home. The thought of returning to the shallow, noisy, spiritually confused world, especially as a teenager armed with this overwhelming knowledge, was terrifying. "Lord, I can't go back," my soul cried out. "They won't listen. I don't know how. Let me stay here." Jesus looked at me, the fire in his eyes softening slightly with compassion, yet losing none of its resolve. "Ethan, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." He acknowledged my fear, my inadequacy. But the need was too great. "Your generation is adrift," he communicated, the urgency clear. "Bombarded with lies, seduced by distractions, starved for truth. Many are seeking, but they don't know who or what they are seeking. They need voices, even young voices like yours, who can speak with authenticity about me. Not about rules, not about rituals in themselves, but about me. About the life, the freedom, the purpose found only in relationship with me." He wasn't commissioning me to fix everything, but to be a spark. "You must go back," the charge was gentle but absolute. "Wake them up. Tell them their games will end. Tell them their screens cannot satisfy their souls. Tell them their casual approach to eternity has consequences. Tell them I love them, I died for them, and I am calling them now to leave their apathy and follow me with their whole hearts." He reached out his hand of light again, and I felt an infusion of something beyond description, courage, clarity, strength, and an unshakable conviction that wasn't my own. It was his spirit, equipping me for the impossible task. Mary stepped forward again, her presence a comforting reassurance, her smile conveying maternal pride and prayerful support. She seemed to place a hand over my heart, imparting a sense of steadfastness. The mission was clear. The equipping was given. The choice was mine, yet in his presence, could there be any other choice? Love demanded a response. Truth demanded proclamation. "Yes, Lord," I surrendered completely. "I will go. Use me." A final wave of his all-encompassing love washed over me, a promise sealed. "I am with you." And then, the light began to contract, the connection shifted, and I felt myself being pulled rapidly back, falling away from eternity, back towards the constraints, the pain, and the unexpected second chance of earthly life. The return was like hitting a brick wall at light speed. Agony slammed back into my body. A desperate, ragged gasp tore through my lungs, followed by uncontrollable coughing. My eyes flew open to the harsh glare of hospital lights, the insistent, rhythmic beeping of machines, and the blurred, tearful faces of my parents leaning over me. Ethan. Oh, Ethan. Thank God. Doctor, he's awake. My mom's voice was choked with tears and disbelief. Confusion warred with the lingering echoes of eternity. Doctors hurried in, shining lights in my eyes, calling my name, checking monitors. I learned later the paramedics had worked on me for several minutes in the hallway with no response before finally getting a faint, erratic rhythm back en route to the hospital. I'd arrested again in the ER. They'd been working on me for over 10 minutes total without a heartbeat. The prognosis had been beyond grim. Yet here I was, awake, aware, and according to the bewildered doctors, showing neurological responses far better than anyone thought possible. My recovery, like the cause of my initial collapse, later determined to be a sudden arrhythmia from an unknown congenital issue, was labeled a medical mystery. But I knew. It wasn't a mystery, it was a mission. The Ethan Brooks who woke up in that ICU bed bore little resemblance to the indifferent kid who had collapsed in the hallway. The world looked the same, but my perception of it was radically altered. The constant hum of triviality, the digital haze, the spiritual numbness, it was all thrown into sharp relief against the vibrant, urgent reality I had just experienced. Recovering physically took time, but recovering spiritually, or rather, integrating the experience into my life, was the real challenge. How do you go back to worrying about algebra homework when you've stood before the creator of the universe? How do you make small talk with friends about weekend plans when your soul is burning with a message about eternity? Sharing was hard. My parents, relieved I was alive, listened with love but also deep concern, arranging counseling sessions, which I attended, trying to explain that my experience wasn't a delusion. My friends, Jake and Noah, were visibly freaked out. When I tried, haltingly, to tell them about the light, about Jesus, about the need to wake up from just gaming and scrolling, they shifted uncomfortably, mumbled things like, "Whoa, heavy," and quickly changed the subject. I saw the spiritual apathy Jesus had spoken of reflected in their eyes, and my heart ached. But I couldn't not share. The commission burned within me. I started small. I actually read the Bible my parents had given me years ago, finding words that now resonated with the authority and love I had encountered. I started praying, awkwardly at first, then more naturally, talking to the Jesus I now knew was listening. My phone usage plummeted, not because I became anti-technology, but because its allure seemed so weak compared to the richness of time spent in prayer or real conversation. I started going back to church with my parents, but listening with new ears, filtering the sermons, the songs, the rituals through the lens of genuine relationship versus empty religion. I even joined the youth group, much to everyone's shock, not for the pizza, but hoping to connect with other teens, maybe find ways to share what I'd learned. It's an ongoing process. I face skepticism daily. Sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm speaking a different language. But the memory of his eyes, the feel of his love, the urgency of his warning, it keeps me going. I talk to people when I feel the prompting. I try to live differently, to let his light shine through me, however imperfectly. My message is simple, the one he gave me: wake up. Life is more than likes, levels, and distractions. Jesus is real. He loves you more than you can imagine, and he's calling you into a real relationship with him, right now. Don't settle for lukewarm. Don't waste the precious time you have. Eternity is closer than you think. Choose him. Choose life. Ethan's powerful testimony is a stark reminder for our times. In a world saturated with noise and distraction, it's easy to drift, to become spiritually numb, to put off the most important questions of life. His journey from indifference to urgent witness underscores the reality of the spiritual realm and the loving call of Jesus Christ to each one of us. Are you truly living, or just existing? Are you connected to the source of life, or caught in the static of the world? We pray this story has impacted you. If it has, please show your support by liking this video and sharing it with family and friends who need to hear this urgent message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell. We share incredible testimonies like Ethan's every day, revealing God's work in the world, and you won't want to miss a single one. Stay tuned, stay blessed, and most importantly, stay awake.